She discovered her son was shamed over lunch by a teacher, so she exposed the abuse, forced discipline, and reclaimed dignity. Fall in Madison, Wisconsin was the busiest season for Rachel Miller. At 6 o'clock in the morning, after finishing her night shift, she dragged her tired body to the kitchen and began preparing lunch for her 10-year-old son, Ethan. It was exhausting work for someone who had just completed a 12-hour night shift as a nurse. But this was a daily routine she would never compromise on. "Good morning, Mom." Ethan appeared in the kitchen wearing his pajamas. Casually smoothing down his messy brown hair, he wrapped his small arms around his mother's back. Rachel lifted her heavy eyelids, weighed down by fatigue, and smiled at her son. Her face bore the accumulated traces of exhaustion from the past 2 years since her divorce, but she never let Ethan see it. "Good morning. Today's lunch is your favorite turkey sandwich." Rachel carefully layered thin slices of turkey on whole wheat bread and added lettuce and tomato. The contents of their refrigerator were far from abundant, but she took pride in providing her son with nutritionally balanced meals within their limited budget. She sliced an apple thin and sprinkled it with lemon juice, then filled a small plastic container with yogurt. Finally, she lovingly added a homemade oatmeal cookie to the lunchbox. "Mom, you stayed up late making my cookies again, didn't you?" Ethan said with concern. "It's okay. Mom's a night owl," Rachel answered cheerfully, though in reality she had stood in front of the oven after her night shift, fighting off sleepiness. Ethan showed remarkable academic talent. Last year, he won the state math competition, and his photo was featured in the local newspaper. His teachers unanimously praised his potential, and even mentioned the possibility of scholarships to prestigious universities. For Rachel, there could be no greater source of pride. During the divorce, her ex-husband Michael had cruelly declared, "You will never be able to raise our son properly on your own." But Ethan's success proved those words wrong. "What class are you looking forward to today?" Rachel asked as she closed the lunchbox. "Science time. We are doing chemical reaction experiments today." But Ethan's expression clouded slightly. "Lately, I have been dreading lunchtime." "Why? It's nothing." Ethan quickly changed the subject. "Mom, what time will you be home tonight?" "In the morning as usual, but Friday I have a day shift so we can have dinner together." Their small 2-person apartment wasn't luxurious, but it was filled with warm love. The living room displayed Ethan's award photos in handmade frames, and his excellent report cards were proudly posted on the refrigerator. Rachel believed she was doing her best for her son, and Ethan understood his mother's devoted love. However, Rachel had not missed the recent changes in Ethan. He was bringing home his lunchbox empty less often, increasingly explaining that he was not hungry. His grades remained excellent, but he seemed to smile with less of his former innocent joy. In her work-filled days, Rachel sensed these subtle changes in her son, but could not pinpoint the specific cause. When they heard the school bus arriving, Ethan hurriedly got ready. Rachel kissed her son's cheek and handed him his lunchbox. "I love you. I love you too, Mom." As she listened to the sound of the bus driving away, Rachel felt an anxiety that she was missing something important. Her maternal instinct told her there was something serious hidden behind her son's changes, but her consciousness, dominated by fatigue, could not fully heed that warning. On a chilly evening in mid-October, Rachel came home after finishing work at the hospital. When she opened the apartment door, Ethan was doing homework at the dining table as usual. Next to him sat his lunchbox barely touched. "Welcome home, Mom." Ethan looked up and smiled, but that smile lacked its former brightness. Rachel picked up the lunchbox and checked its contents. The sandwich had not been touched at all, and the apple was untouched too. Only the homemade cookie had been eaten about halfway. "You did not eat your lunch again?" Rachel said, hiding her worry. "Are you feeling sick?" "No, I am fine." Ethan returned his gaze to his homework. "I had a snack before lunchtime today, so I was not hungry." Rachel could not accept her son's explanation. Ethan usually did not bring spending money to buy snacks at school. However, she did not press him. Instead, she decided to make his favorite macaroni and cheese for dinner. The next morning, Rachel took special care preparing Ethan's lunch. She made his favorite peanut butter and jam sandwich, added cheese sticks, and baked a small banana bread to include. "Today's a special menu," she said, as she handed the lunchbox to her son. Ethan took the lunchbox, but for some reason, his expression clouded. "Thank you, Mom, but you do not have to work so hard." "What do you mean?" "Nothing." Ethan hurried off to school. That evening, the lunchbox came back untouched again. Rachel's anxiety grew day by day. Her son seemed to be losing weight, and he appeared to have lost his former vitality. On Friday night, Rachel decided to ask detailed questions about school life while having dinner with her son. "Has anything changed at school lately? Have you made any new friends?" "Not really." Ethan poked at his mashed potatoes with his fork. "Everyone is normal. How is lunchtime? Do you all eat together?" Ethan's hands stopped. "Sort of. If you are not eating your lunch, should we switch to school lunch?" "No." Ethan suddenly raised his voice. "I want Mom's lunch, but I really have not been hungry lately." Rachel was surprised by her son's reaction. It was unusual for Ethan to become so emotional. Over the weekend, Rachel ran into Carol Hamilton, the mother of one of Ethan's classmates, at the neighborhood supermarket. Carol worked at a local real estate company, and her son Ryan was in the same class as Ethan. "Rachel, good to see you." Carol approached with a smile. "How is Ethan doing?" "Ryan says he seems a little down lately, really." Rachel was surprised. "He seems fine at home." Kids sometimes hide their true feelings from their parents at home, trying not to worry them. Carol showed the insight of an experienced mother. "But I am sure it is nothing serious. Children this age have mood swings." Rachel felt somewhat reassured by Carol's words, but her anxiety did not completely disappear. That night, when Ethan was doing homework in his bedroom, Rachel passed by his room. The door was slightly open and she could see inside. Ethan was sitting at his desk, but instead of doing homework, he was staring out the window. His expression held a sadness too heavy for a 10-year-old child to bear. Rachel knocked on the door. "May I come in?" "Yes." Ethan hurriedly opened his textbook. Rachel sat down on her son's bed. "If you have any worries, will not you talk to Mom? I will listen to anything." Ethan was silent for a long time. Then finally he spoke. "Mom, I am sorry. It is my fault." "What do you mean? I am a bad kid." "So, Dad left, did not he?" Rachel's heart ached at her son's words. "That is not true. It was a problem between Dad and Mom, and you did nothing wrong." "But Mom is always tired because of me, right? If I were not here, Mom would have an easier life, Ethan." Rachel hugged her son. "You are Mom's treasure. Because you are here, Mom can work hard every day. I am tired because of work, not because of you." Ethan nodded slightly against his mother's chest. However, Rachel sensed there was still something deep in her son's heart that he could not talk about. The following Monday, while making her son's lunch, Rachel was thinking about a new approach. Perhaps there was something wrong with the lunch contents. With that thought, she made a lavish lunch packed with Ethan's favorite foods. However, that day too, the lunch came back untouched. Tuesday morning, after Ethan left for school, Rachel called his teacher, Mrs. Carpenter, a veteran teacher in her 50s. She was a reliable figure with years of experience. "Good morning, Mrs. Carpenter. This is Rachel, Ethan's mother." "Good morning, Mrs. Miller. What can I do for you?" "Actually, I am worried because Ethan has stopped eating his lunch recently. How does he seem at school?" "Well," Mrs. Carpenter thought for a moment before answering, "his concentration in class is still wonderful, and his grades are excellent. However, he does seem quieter than before. His interactions with friends might not be as active as they used to be. Is there some problem?" "I do not see any major issues, but I will observe him more carefully. If anything comes up, I will contact you immediately." After hanging up, Rachel became even more anxious. Her son's changes might be more serious than she had imagined. That night, while Ethan was doing homework, Rachel quietly observed him. Her son was working on his studies seriously as always, but occasionally he sighed deeply. Then suddenly putting down his pencil, he turned to his mother. "Mom, am I not a normal kid? Why do you ask that?" "It's nothing." Ethan turned back to his homework. "But sometimes I think so." Rachel could not understand the meaning of her son's words, but she was certain that some serious problem was lurking beneath. Wednesday at 2:00 in the afternoon, Rachel was having a late lunch in the hospital break room. When she was about to take a nap before her night shift, her cell phone rang. The caller ID showed Madison Elementary School. "Is this Mrs. Miller?" "This is Mr. Johnson from Madison Elementary School." The caller was a teacher who taught the neighboring class. Rachel had never spoken with him directly, but she had seen him at school events. He seemed like a serious teacher with a strong sense of justice. "I am sorry to bother you when you are busy. Actually, we need to talk about Ethan urgently. Could you come to school right away?" Mr. Johnson's voice contained tension. Rachel's heart began beating rapidly. Did something happen to Ethan? Is he hurt? No, Ethan is safe, but a very serious problem has come to light. I will explain the details at school. Rachel quickly explained the situation to her supervisor at the hospital and got permission to leave early. While driving to Madison Elementary, various possibilities raced through her mind. Had Ethan done something wrong or had someone harmed him? When she arrived at school, the receptionist led Rachel to the principal's office with a serious expression. In the room sat Principal, Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Johnson, and surprisingly, Ethan's homeroom teacher, Mrs. Carpenter. Mrs. Carpenter's face was pale, the complete opposite of her usual confident expression. "Mrs. Miller, thank you for coming despite your busy schedule," the principal began. "First, let me say that Ethan is currently resting in the nurse's office. He has no physical injuries." "What exactly happened?" Rachel asked as she took a seat. Mr. Johnson stepped forward. "Actually, during lunch break today, I found Ethan crying alone in the hallway. When I asked why, he would not tell me, but his condition seemed so unusual that I decided to investigate further." "Investigate how?" "We checked the school's security camera footage," the principal said gravely, "and we discovered a very serious problem." The principal opened a laptop on her desk and turned the screen toward Rachel. "This is footage from yesterday's nutrition class. Before you watch, I should warn you that it is very shocking content." Rachel held her breath. The screen showed the classroom. Children were sitting at their desks with their lunchboxes in front of them, and Mrs. Carpenter was standing at the front of the classroom. "The audio is also recorded," Mr. Johnson explained. "Let us listen." Mrs. Carpenter in the footage began speaking. "Now, everyone, today we will learn about nutritionally balanced meals. By comparing good and bad examples, we will deepen our understanding." Mrs. Carpenter looked around the classroom and approached Ethan's desk. "Look at this." She picked up Ethan's lunchbox. "This is a typical example of a nutritionally unbalanced lunch." Rachel stared at the screen, speechless. Her lovingly prepared lunch was being used as a bad example in front of the entire class. Mrs. Carpenter continued. "Lunches from single-parent households tend to be nutritionally unbalanced like this. The mother is probably too busy to have time to prepare proper meals. White bread has low nutritional value, and processed meat contains too much salt. Homemade sweets also lead to excessive sugar intake." In the footage, Ethan was gripping his hands on his desk, looking down. Other children could be heard whispering among themselves. "Teacher, does this mean it is a poor kid's lunch?" a boy's voice was heard. "You should not say things like that," Mrs. Carpenter lightly cautioned, but then added, "However, it is true that families without financial means find it difficult to obtain quality ingredients." Tears spilled from Rachel's eyes. The lunch she had made with love while fighting fatigue after her night shift was being humiliated in this way. She had never imagined such a thing. The footage continued. After class, several children were shown surrounding Ethan. At the center was Braden, known as the son of a wealthy family. "Ethan, your mom really is poor, is not she?" Braden said with a laugh. "My mom says she only uses organic vegetables. Your mom can only buy cheap ingredients, right?" "That is not true," Ethan protested in a small voice. "But the teacher said so. Single-parent families have bad nutrition. Your lunch is a poor kid's lunch." Other children began laughing too. Ethan's face turned bright red, and he ran away from the scene. "There is more footage after this," Mr. Johnson said quietly. The screen switched to near the entrance of the boys' bathroom. Ethan rushed into a stall, and the sound of the door closing could be heard. Then, small sobs could be heard. It was the sound of a 10-year-old boy crying quietly by himself. This was yesterday's incident. The principal closed the screen, and today Mr. Johnson noticed Ethan's distress, and the truth came to light. Rachel slumped back in her chair. The reason her son stopped eating his lunch, lost his energy, and apologized, saying, "I am sorry, it is my fault," all became clear. "This was meant to be educational consideration," Mrs. Carpenter said in a trembling voice as part of nutrition education. "I just thought to show a real example." "A real example." Rachel's voice shook with anger. "You mean an example to hurt my son? That was not my intention." Rachel stood up. "You humiliated my son in front of the entire class. You trampled on the lunch I made with love under the guise of education." The principal intervened. Mrs. Miller, I understand your feelings completely. The school will take responsibility for this matter. Mr. Johnson spoke up. Actually, this is not the first time. I have had doubts about Teacher Carpenter's class content for a while. There have been too many comments targeting specific students. Why did not you report this earlier? Rachel asked. I had no evidence. However, seeing Ethan's condition today, I could not stay silent anymore. Rachel took a deep breath and tried to regain her composure. Please let me see my son. Walking down the hallway to the nurse's office, Rachel was in a state of mixed emotions. Anger, sadness, and love for her son swirled in her heart. When she opened the door to the nurse's office, Ethan was sitting on the bed. When he saw his mother, tears welled up in his eyes again. Mom, I am sorry, Ethan said in a small voice. You are not the one who should apologize. Rachel hugged her son tightly. I am sorry I could not protect you. That night, Rachel and Ethan sat side by side on the sofa at home. Her son rested his head on his mother's lap and finally began to open his heart. Mom, I will tell you the truth. Ethan's voice was small. I did not become unable to eat my lunch. I did not want to eat it anymore. Why? Rachel asked, gently stroking her son's hair. Every time Mrs. Carpenter looked at my lunch, she would say, poor nutrition again, in front of everyone. Then Braden and the others started calling it a poor kid's lunch. Ethan's voice trembled. I was embarrassed and could not eat in front of everyone watching. Rachel's heart ached. Then why did not you tell Mom? Because Mom works so hard for me, right? Even when you come home tired from night shifts, you make lunch for me. I could not say Mom's lunch was bad. Holding Ethan, as he could not stop crying, Rachel felt her heart warm at her son's kindness and strength. At the same time, anger at herself for letting this situation continue also welled up. What is most important to Mom is that you are happy. Lunch does not matter at all. I am truly sorry I did not notice you were suffering. The next morning, Rachel took a personal day and first went to the school board office. When she explained the situation at reception, a meeting with Education Supervisor Mrs. Davis was immediately arranged. Mrs. Miller, we received a report about this matter from the school last night, Supervisor Davis said with a serious expression. First, on behalf of the school, I apologize. We are deeply sorry that such a situation occurred. Rachel placed a recorder on the desk. I will be recording this conversation for future reference. Of course, Supervisor Davis showed understanding. Teacher Carpenter's actions clearly violate educational ethics. Hurting students with prejudice statements is absolutely unacceptable. What specific disciplinary action are you considering? We are immediately considering transferring her to another school. Also, the school board will implement anti-prejudice education training programs in all schools. Rachel was satisfied. However, that alone was not enough. In the afternoon, Rachel returned to school for a meeting with Braden's parents, Marcus Thornton and Elizabeth Thornton. The Thorntons were local influential people. Marcus was a partner at a major law firm, and Elizabeth served on the board of a charity organization. Mrs. Miller, Marcus began in a high-handed tone, we heard from our son. However, making a big fuss over a little argument between children seems immature. Rachel answered calmly, a little argument. Your son was bullying my son by calling him poor. Our son was just honestly saying what he thought, Elizabeth interjected. In fact, statistically, the nutritional status of children from single-parent households, statistics, Rachel's voice filled with anger. My son is not a statistic. He is a human being and he has been deeply hurt by your son's words. The principal intervened. Mr. and Mrs. Thornton, this incident is clearly inappropriate bullying. Braden needs proper guidance. Marcus answered with a reluctant expression. Fine, we will have our son apologize. That is not all, Rachel continued. Your child needs to understand why his behavior was wrong, and I want him to promise never to do such things again. That evening, Rachel and Ethan visited the school again. Braden and his parents were waiting. Braden was clearly unhappy, but prompted by his parents, he stepped forward. Ethan, I'm sorry, Braden said in a small voice. I'm sorry for saying mean things about your lunch. Ethan looked up at his mother. Rachel smiled at her son and nodded. I am sorry for getting angry too, Ethan answered, but please do not say bad things about my family anymore. Okay, Braden answered with a serious expression. Actually, I always thought your lunch looked delicious, especially those cookies. This unexpected confession surprised all the adults present. "Next time, I will ask Mom how to make them." Ethan smiled. The following week, Mrs. Carpenter's transfer to another school was officially decided. In her place, a young female teacher in her late 20s, Ms. Rodriguez, became the new homeroom teacher. Ms. Rodriguez specialized in diversity education and was known for treating all students equally. In the new teacher's first class, Ms. Rodriguez spoke to the entire class. "Everyone in our class, we respect all families. Families with a father and mother, families with only a mother, families with only a father, families living with grandparents. Every family is wonderful, and every family's love is equally precious." During lunchtime that day, Ethan finished his mother's homemade lunch for the first time in a long while. Brayden, sitting next to him, spoke up. "Can you give me one of those cookies next time?" "Sure," Ethan answered happily, "but if Mom teaches you how to make them, you can make them yourself too." "Really? I will ask my mother." That night, Rachel received an unexpected call from Nancy, her colleague at the hospital. "Rachel, I heard about your situation. Actually, my daughter had a similar experience." Nancy told her that Rachel's story had spread among the nursing staff. "We want to support you. How about creating a support group for single mother nurses?" Rachel was moved by her colleague's offer. "That is a wonderful idea. Also, if you need it, we are thinking of taking turns helping with lunch preparation. It must be really hard after night shifts, right? Thank you. But I want to make the lunch myself. It is an important connection between Ethan and me, of course, but please call on us whenever you are in trouble." After hanging up, Rachel began making Ethan's lunch for the next day in the kitchen. The usual turkey sandwich, apple, and homemade cookie. Simple, but filled with love. "Mom, what is tomorrow's lunch?" Ethan peeked into the kitchen. "Your favorites. And I made extra cookies for Brayden, too." "Thank you, Mom." Ethan hugged his mother. "I love your lunch the most in the whole world." 3 months later, Rachel was visiting her son's class observation, having left her afternoon shift early. In Ms. Rodriguez's classroom, students were presenting about family diversity. Ethan stood confidently at the front, speaking to his classmates. "My family is my mom and me. Mom works night shifts as a nurse, helping many people. Every morning, even when she is tired, she lovingly makes lunch for me. I am proud of my mom." Rachel, listening from the back of the classroom, had tears in her eyes. Since that incident, Ethan had developed even stronger pride in his family. When the presentation ended, Brayden raised his hand. "Teacher, I have something to say too." When Ms. Rodriguez nodded, Brayden stood up. "I said wrong things about Ethan's family before, but now I understand. Even though families have different forms, the love is the same, and Ethan's mom's cookies are really delicious." The whole class was filled with laughter. Ethan was also smiling happily. After the class observation, Rachel had a chance to talk with Ms. Rodriguez. "Ethan really is a wonderful child," the young teacher admired sincerely. "Through that difficult experience, he grew tremendously internally. Now he is a leader figure for other students too. Thank you. Thanks to you, my son can love school again." On the way home, walking hand in hand with Ethan, Rachel reflected on the changes of the past few months. The single mother support group started by her hospital colleagues continued monthly meetings, becoming a valuable place to share each other's experiences. The school also introduced a prejudice prevention education program and began conducting regular teacher training. "Mom, will you help me practice for next week's math contest?" Ethan asked. "Of course. But let us not just study. Let us go see a movie sometimes too." "Really? Yay!" That night, Rachel made a special dinner. Ethan's favorite macaroni and cheese with a vegetable salad he had recently become interested in. While eating, they talked about their future dreams. "When I grow up, I want a job helping people like Mom," Ethan said. "I want to become a doctor and cure sick people." "That is a wonderful dream. Mom is truly proud of her son. But it costs money, right? College is expensive, is not it?" Rachel took her son's hand. "Do not worry. With your grades, you should be able to get scholarships, and Mom will work hard to save money too." In fact, Rachel had recently been offered a promotion at the hospital. It was a position as head nurse for night shift staff with a significant salary increase. 6 months later, in the fall, Ethan won the state math competition again. At the awards ceremony, not only Rachel but also Ms. Rodriguez and hospital colleagues came to cheer him on. "The winner is Ethan Miller," the announcer declared, and the venue filled with loud applause. Receiving the trophy on stage, Ethan looked out at the audience and found his mother. Then at the microphone he said, "I dedicate this award to my mother. Mom is my greatest hero. The lunch Mom makes for me every day gives me love and courage. Mom taught me that a real family is not about money or appearances, but about caring for each other." Rachel wiped away tears while applauding her son. The people in the audience also stood up moved. That night, they enjoyed a special celebration dinner. As Ethan happily ate the homemade chocolate cake Rachel had made, he said, "Mom, we are the best team, are not we?" "Yes, the world's strongest team." Rachel smiled the next morning. Rachel lovingly made her son's lunch as always. Ethan proudly carried that lunch to school. No one called his lunch a poor kid's lunch anymore. It was the world's richest lunch made with love, the most luxurious ingredient of all.